That's very weird. What is that?
Welcome back to another episode of Lifted Motors. Today, we have a little bit different kind of a motor. We actually have an aircraft, a helicopter. Still counts, it's got a motor in it. Before we get in there and start checking this thing out, I wanna take a second to first explain why this isn't random, but two, I just want to say thank you to all of you. We're about to hit 20,000 subscribers. I know there's people out there that got 20 million, but 20,000 is such an amazing checkpoint. I'm so thankful for each of you that are listening to the podcast and watching these videos. We're having a great time with it, and I just appreciate all of you. I want to say thank you to Jacob at New to Medical Device Sales for believing in me, believing in my idea with this channel, and also now H5 Productions, H5 Helicopters, which is who owns this helicopter and is going to be in our video today. I just appreciate you guys so much and believing in this vision, and we're getting to do things that most of the time people don't get to do until they have a huge channel. And so the fact that we have this privilege, I don't take it for granted, and I really appreciate you guys. So that being said, we're gonna pop these doors up and you're gonna see the helicopter that we're going to be checking out and reviewing today. 2, 3. I missed one. If you guys saw the hangar walkthrough video, Sean was in there, but in case you didn't see that, Sean is the Director of Operations here at H5 Helicopters. You call the number on the website, it gets directly to him. Mitch is the Chief Pilot here and owner of H5 Helicopters. You guys saw him on my podcast, second episode, and we had a ton of people reach out about how much they enjoyed that episode with you. You did an excellent job. This is the Airbus AS350-B2.
That's correct.
I nailed it. What made you pick this one?
This was the best platform for doing what we did, which was filming at the time, which we started at. Later when we got to do 135, which is air tours, air charters. This aircraft is really just a very general utility aircraft for doing any type of helicopter application, from filming to external load work to charter work like we do with it. The jack of all trades. I mean, it pretty much does everything.
What's the weight limit, Sean?
850 pounds.
I knew you knew your stuff.
Internal.
Safety comes first. We definitely make sure we do all the stuff to keep like within the regulations and everything we're supposed to do.
Now, your first helicopter, what was that? And how does it compare to this one?
The first one was called a little R-22. It's a trainer helicopter, a little piston-driven helicopter, two-place. Put about 600 hours on that aircraft before I transitioned to the next one, which was Bell Jet Ranger, a 206B3. Put about 2,000 hours on that aircraft before we then transitioned into the AS350 or the B2. So it was really good to transition from the smaller aircraft, piston-driven, to then do a turbine, a smaller turbine, what they call a light turbine, and then into this aircraft.
What's it like from a driver's or a flyer's pilot's experience comparing the two?
The trainer, I mean, is pretty much just that. It gets you prepared for stepping into like the turbine world or just really getting a feel for the aircraft. A two-bladed rotor system versus a three-bladed like this, it really keeps you on guard as far as when you're doing training in the aircraft. When you're doing auto rotations, things like that, heightens your ability to get into the auto quicker versus something like this to where you have a little more time when you get into, let's say, an emergency situation and go into an auto rotation or something.
What's an auto rotation?
If you were to lose an engine, the aircraft will continue to fly. So
really? Like, so if you're losing an engine in a helicopter, that doesn't just mean game over?
No, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, it's kind of like a pinwheel. Say if you have a pinwheel, you stick it out the window and it keeps turning. Same thing's happening with the helicopter. Let's say you lost an engine, the blades are still turning, and as the aircraft starts to settle, relative wind is coming up through the rotor system. So it's continually keeping those blades turning while you're starting to descend. As long as you have wind or relative winds to keep those blades turning, the aircraft is still functional as if it had an engine. So your hydraulic system and everything else is still working, just as if the engine was still running on the aircraft.
I think this guy knows his stuff. Jeez. And I'm gonna keep asking dumb questions because I don't know a lot about this stuff, and so some of you people that are in aviation might think these are super elementary questions, but that's the point. What do you think the most common questions you get from people that are thinking about taking a flight?
We get a lot of first-time flyers, so it's kind of, for a lot of people, it's a bucket list thing.
Yeah.
Little nervousness when they get into it because they're unsure, they don't know what to expect. But when they get here and they realize the experience that we have, the safety records, the protocols, everything that we follow, they realize Mitch flies his kids, his family around.
I was gonna say that. There's been a couple times I've said he takes his whole family in there, and that kind of settles them, because if you're willing to have your own family in there, that helps them have a little peace.
Yeah. And I think the big thing is really just helping people to understand the type of business we are and the product that we provide, the experience they're gonna have. The favorite part of my job is whenever people get back, I come out, I open the doors up, and they just got a big smile on their face. They went up, they had this time of their life, they got to see something they'd never been able to see before. And just kind of trying to convey that to somebody is tough, because they don't know what they're doing. They're just calling up thinking a helicopter, and they don't realize how cool this stuff really is.
What's crazy is when you guys have somebody that gets off and wants to go again and does it again the next day. That's
Had a few of those.
Yeah, I know you have. Let's walk around just a little bit.
My name is Jacob McLaughlin, and I'm the founder of New to Medical Device Sales. Medical device sales is the selling of medical equipment to hospitals, surgeons. They're actually in the surgeries, and the average rep's going to make around $177,000. And what we've been able to do is help people break in about 8 weeks at around $100,000 starting out in the industry. It usually is 5 to 7 interviews, 6 to 12 weeks long in the interview process, and they go up against thousands of people. But that's because you are going to be working with some of the smartest human beings, such as surgeons. You're going to make over 6 figures. You get your car paid for, all your gas paid for, and all your travel paid for. We've been able to help over 2,000 people do this in the last 2 years. Not only do we help people break in to make a difference and change other people's lives, they also get to change their lives. If you're interested in helping people, and you're interested in financially becoming free, we can definitely help you. And I think you should check out New to Medical Device Sales, our podcast, while you can also click the link where you guys can learn more about what we do at New to Medical Device Sales. I absolutely love Brenton. I thank him so much for what he's doing for all of you. And I hope you guys keep enjoying the episode.
On the side here, you have the Saber Cat.
Right.
And that's become very recognizable. I have people that text me like, hey, I saw you guys.
So we actually had a show, a travel channel. It was called Sky Scavengers, like American Pickers, but from the air. We put the Saber Cat on here to create like another character for the show. With the merch and other stuff we had, we always branded that.
You're walking around pre-flight. I know you have like a standard check, but I'm sure that's probably even something that is like...
Absolutely. We always do what's called a pre-flight before the aircraft, and then we'll also do a post-flight. So after the flight's over, then we'll also walk around and do a post-flight on the aircraft. We'll raise all the cowlings. We'll basically pop these up, open these cowlings. There's one for the engine, one for the side compartment where the transmission sits, up to the main rotor. You're looking just for anything that's possible, leaks, safety pins, safety wires, stuff like that on the aircraft. Very basic. We have our AMPs, which are airframe and power plant. Mechanics come in every 7 day, 15 hours. They do maintenance on the aircraft, but they also do their own pre-flights. Yeah, shout out to Mitch.
You're gonna learn today.
And T-Bone also.
Baby.
And this aircraft's constantly getting looked at, by not just the pilots, but also by the AMPs that do the work on the aircraft too. Safety is huge with us, certainly because I fly myself and my family. So it's imperative that, we don't half-step anything. If something comes up on its time life, counter life, we don't push it. It gets repaired or replaced.
I've picked up just in passing when you guys are doing your thing and you got customers here, you guys are always instructing people where you want them to get in and stay away from the back.
Correct. Yeah, typically we use what's called the bulkhead right here. We want people to stay in front of this part of the aircraft. When the aircraft is running, the tail rotor is spinning 6.5 times faster than the main rotor, so you'll never see that thing spinning. So God forbid somebody lost their hat or they go running back there, end of the game right there. So you always want to keep people, in front of this. We have Sean that, escorts people in and out if we had to do a hot load. So typically we wait for the blades to be stopped before we typically get people out. But when we are doing hot loads, when we're maneuvering a lot of people in and out, we'll basically keep it running. He'll take them, put them in and out. You like that, didn't you? Okay, hot loads. So
just for clarification, a hot load is when the blade is still spinning, people are entering or exiting the aircraft. If it's just a regular load, it's off like it is right now.
A lot of come and go.
It's not like when Sean just took a dump and that's a hot load. That's completely different. This is very unique. Our setup is because we actually have our facility on a private property attached to the airport. So we're outside the proper airport, what's called a Class Delta airports. And after 9/11, they stopped doing this type of development to where they don't allow you to have private access to the airport as they used to. When we do take off, what we'll do is contact ATC or Air Traffic Control. Our call sign is actually Saber Cat 1. Scottsdale Helicopter Saber Cat 1 is is at H5, our location. They know where we're at on the airport.
Are you supposed to stay at a certain elevation?
We do, and that's a good question. Typically, we stay underneath the fixed wing traffic because there is what's called a TPA, traffic pattern altitude, that the fixed wing basically have as they're coming into an airport. They're typically 1,000 feet as they're coming into the airport, maintain 1,000 feet until they hit their downwind or their base approach, and then their final approach coming into the runway. So helicopters, we maintain about 500 feet above the deck. So we have about a 500-foot delta between the fixed wing traffic and ourselves.
What do we need to do? Where do you want us? What are we doing?
So typically, me as a pilot, before we load the people in, I'll go and do a walk around on the aircraft. I'm checking things to make sure everything's operating properly, whether it's the doors, making sure all my latches are closed from underneath, on top, door latches, double checking anything that's in the back here that could be moved around or, you know, in flight could be shifted. We typically have everything. Storage here with a little bit of storage space in the back. There's also storage on each side too. So you have side storage and rear storage baggage area. Looking for any anomalies on the aircraft.
What would be an anomaly on there?
Something like it was crimping. Let's say we took a hard landing. If there's a big ding or maybe a bird strike.
And this might be a dumb question, but it's a question that when you're explaining why you want to keep people away and you were talking about how this rotates faster than the main blade, the top blade makes sense to me that it brings you up. The rear blade, is that directional like a rudder on a ship, or is it also?
Right, well on a plane they have what's called, you know, your rudder and your elevators and whatnot. These are actually called torque pedals. So basically it keeps the aircraft torquing around itself. When you're pushing the pedals, creating the blade on the tail rotor to pitch. So you're actually pushing thrust one way or the other, as just if it was a blade on an airplane. So you're pushing thrust one way, you know, to push the aircraft to anti-torque pedals to keep it from basically helicopter spinning around itself. If you didn't have this, the blades will be turning and then basically the helicopter would be spinning around itself. And we do our walk around, we're looking at the vertical, horizontal fins, tail boom, everything's buttoned up, engine, cowls underneath, doors. Everything looks good. Typically when I get up here, I'm looking at my pitch links here. You don't want to be pulling on this because all the strength is in the vertical here. Checking the blades up and down, your different points on it. And we'll just give it a spin. And if you look when I'm spinning this, you'll see the tail rotor spinning also because these are all tied together. So again, just part of the pre-flight, making sure everything's good, nothing fell off, God forbid a nuts off or a safety wire. Little things like that you want to, you know, just double check. Yeah, any little thing on a helicopter makes a difference.
This is called the starter stick. So it's just like a big battery. Basically, you stick it right back in here in the side of the helicopter. So for takeoff, when he starts the engine, basically just helps get the blades up and spinning and takes a little bit of the extra stress off the battery of the helicopter.
This is nice because it's just a very convenient, put in the back of the aircraft and take with you, you know, keep it recharged. If we overnight somewhere or it's very cold in the morning or something like that, you know, we typically just start it with the start stick. And then if we do have, you know, people getting out, we'll basically get them seated in the back first, go through a safety brief. We have a safety brief card that shows them how to get into the aircraft, you know, putting the seat belts on and off. There's a 4-point harness in the front. We have just regular buckles in the back with another strap that goes across. We go over the headsets, how those operate. There's noise cancellation. Probably the most dangerous part is when the aircraft is actually starting to settle. When you pull the power and the aircraft starts to spool down, the blades actually start to just sag. You can see the blades sagging right now a little bit, you know, possibly 12 to 14 inches. When you're in a helicopter, if the blades are starting to go down and you are, you know, exiting an aircraft, you never want to exit uphill. You either want to go around the front or stay low or try to go downhill from the aircraft. As you're going up, those blades are starting to basically sag like that and droop. And if you're going uphill, then obviously, you know, that closure rate gets really close. Best thing is always to wait till the blades just stop. When we're spooling up the aircraft, the blades will actually go out to basically what's called flight idle, and they're almost straight out. When I pull pitch, they actually cone up like this. So we're actually moving up and creating a lot of thrust to lift the aircraft off the ground. That's it, man. Let's get in, fire it up. Thank you. Appreciate that. Always watching out after me.
Hey, there he is. All right, bring him in here, bring him in here. So earlier when I said shout out Mitch Medikevich, this is the man himself, right? He's just making sure here everything is everything, you know what I mean?
And this is the guy that makes this thing as smooth as silk. Truly, man. I mean, one and done, and that blades are like trimmed. Nobody's business.
This thing is about the best flying helicopter there is. It still flies brand new, flies smooth, flies great, got a lot of power. Wonderful helicopter. You guys need an excellent ride. That's the guy to see. This is the place to come. I guarantee it.
Front seat action here in the bird.
And again, you got like a 4-point harness right here. Okay. So that'll go on the side right there. And then you got 2 coming over the top right here.
Get back there, flexibility. Strap in and strap on, boy.
Please, do not anyone try to start a helicopter by what I'm going over with you. Every helicopter has its own startup procedures and how it starts. A lot of the components are different as far as where the switches are and everything else. So always go by whatever the manual says on the startup for that aircraft. Like a GPS too, it's got our ForeFlight, shows you where all the airspace is, where we're at in conjunction with the airport. And you can see a little dot on there, that's us. We have a Garmin 750 here. We also have the ForeFlight here, multifunctional display here. Typically we have our startup procedures. As we go through that, we got startup and shutdown. We don't need that. Get it out of here. We know how to start the, I'm kidding. You better go grab that. So we've got a direct bat, which is going to basically fire up our radios here and also our Garmin. Then we put our master switch. Then we're going to also throw on our fuel pumps. And we're just going to go through some other sequences to check things out. We're going to turn on our generator here so it's on. So as we spool up, we'll start getting the gen come on. We're also going to check our filter, that it works properly. Set our gauges to whatever the flight altitude. We're about 1530 right here. And also check our CWP, which is caution warning panel right here. Make sure our VEMD is set up properly, as well as caution warning signals are up. Then we're going to check our flight fuel pumps. We're going to look for a drop in the fuel. It's a little bit of a drop there as one goes off. The other one, look for a drop there, it goes off. And then we're going to set up for the start. Ours, we take a little bit out of the gate. We're going to push the start button. And I'm also going to keep my hand up here on the crank. So we're going to be watching to make sure that as the T4 goes up with the temp gauge, that you don't over temp or hot start the aircraft, and that's what we're going to be watching here. So as we push our start button here, we're going to bring in a little bit of fuel, and we'll just be watching this T4 gauge right here to see it climb. There it goes. And as that first ignition goes off, we start climbing up, and we want to be about 710 on the startup. At about 41%, we're going to get off the starter, and we're going to get it spooled up.
Gunshot on the hot load.
So what we're going to do now is basically take the aircraft up to what's called flight out. And so I'm going to start bringing my fuel control over there. And you'll start seeing the RPM increase here.
You just feel it. It just wants to go.
That's very weird. What is that?
What you got?
Oh, my phone. It's far away, but it's ringing. That's weird.
That's what you want your pilot to say. Is that's kind of weird. You hear that? I got nervous, and we're on the ground.
We give it about a 30-second cool down, and all we're doing is taking the flight fuel control lever, and we're just pulling it all the way back, which is depleting all the fuel to the engine. It basically turns it off. And this is where you'll start seeing the blades start to sag and pull down. And we just start turning different switches off.
Kind of like life. Start to slow down a little bit, things start to sag a little too, you know?
So what we do now is we just log everything, and then once we do this, we do our post-flight, walk around, and there's certain things on these 80s that we have on the tail rotor that we have to sign off. We'll go do a post-flight check on that, and then we'll sign that off in the logbook, and then we sign this off, and then we transfer this over to the digital copies in our digital
Would you
logbooks.
still have to do this if you didn't fly passengers?
Absolutely, yeah, because everything basically goes back to the maintenance of the aircraft. So all the components, the parts, everything else, they're all either calendar life or time life. So calendar means whether you fly it or not, after 2 years, if that's the calendar life, you've got to replace it or refurbish it. Time life part is it may have like 1,500 hours or 2,000 hours. They each have a time and a calendar, but whichever one comes first is which one you deal with. This information in there for the FAA and the
clap.
Everybody, everybody, a little clap. There we go. Well, thank you for taking us through that. That was absolutely awesome.
Absolutely.
I know I just asked a lot of probably pretty dumb questions, but I just wanted it to come from the perspective of someone just doesn't know anything about it. So I appreciate you walking us through everything. You're the best DEI hire we ever made, baby. I already know the answer to this, but what's your favorite part about what you do?
Sharing it with other people, the God-given ability that He's given us to fly this thing, see His creation, and share with other people who've never seen His creation from that perspective. It's pretty amazing. To be able to share that with others, that's pretty awesome.
The videos that we put up and the things you see, they just don't do it justice. Being there, flying with him, seeing it firsthand, the way he flies and the perspective he gets you, there's nothing like it. It's the aerial experience of a lifetime, as you boys call it. Well, that's a wrap on this video. We hope you guys enjoy it. Please give us a subscribe, comment on here other stuff you want to see. We're getting pretty much anything with a motor now on the channel. We're diversifying and including. We'll see you in the next video.